Far away now, rising towards the south, the sun, piercing the smokes and haze, burned ominous, a dull, bleared disk of red. But all Mordor lay about the mountain like a dead land, silent, shadow-folded, waiting for some dreadful stroke. Hey everyone, Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we will be discussing the history of the region of Mordor, from how it and its infamous volcano came to be, how we knew them in the Third Age, and what happened to that land afterwards. I'll leave some related articles and videos in the description and cards to further outline this topic. My friends, thank you all for joining me today. Let's begin our tale. Where the shadows lie, Mordor, meaning the Dark Land in Sindarin, was a region in the southeast parts of Middle-earth that are recorded in maps. It was a fenced-in land, having the arid Lithui, the Ash Mountains, and the Efel Duath, the Mountains of Shadow, on its northern and western to southern sides respectively. Within these mountains were the subregions of Udun, in the threshold of the land beyond the Black Gate, Gorgoroth and its plateau that housed Amon Amarth, or Orodruin, or Mount Doom as it was best known, and nigh on its northeastern side was the fortress of Barad-dûr, and Gondor would even build other strongholds to keep watch in this land, which we shall discuss more later. There too was Lithlad, the Plain of Ash, the Khand Road, the lands of Nirn, and the inland sea of Nirnin. Now, with the ash from the volcano, most of Mordor was inhabitable by men, as much of it was barren, producing things like sparse brambles. And beyond that, the land had a chill and dread upon it during the reign of Sauron. Nirn, however, was partially fertile from the ash blown southwards from Mount Doom, but the Sea of Nirnin was a saltwater sea, instead of one of fresh water. West of Mordor sat Gondor and Anduin. Northwest was Dagorlad and North Rovanion. East was Rhûn, southeast was Khand, and south was Harad. As told in the Peoples of Middle-earth book, Mount Doom was a construct of the devastating works of Morgoth in the Long First Age, or so say those notes. I could better picture it being a work of Melkor from the Elder Days ere the First Age, when Melkor had mastery over Middle-earth, and the Valar and their people dwelt in the uttermost west with their trees of light. But we will go with the idea that Mount Doom was created during some moment in the First Age, as that is what those notes say, being the most canon idea we have. Perhaps it was during the corrupting of the hearts of men in the east, when Morgoth went abroad from his fortress of Angband, when he created the volcano. Either way, Orodruin was always a powerful feature of Mordor, being the only other definite volcano in Tolkien's works besides Thangorodrim, which Melkor had also created. This volcano would be the reason Sauron, Melkor's greatest servant, fled to Mordor and built mighty evils in that land in later days. He would not, however, be the first denizen of the Dark Land. The mighty spawn of Ungoliant, Shelob, would flee from the west during the War of Wrath at the end of the First Age, and she would live in the Efel Duath, feeding off of men and elves who lived or journeyed near. Eventually, after fleeing the mercy of Eonwe, the bearer banner of Manwë, Sauron would also go to Mordor around the year 1000 of the Second Age, as his allegiance to the evils and teachings of Morgoth held fast within him. In such a time, Sauron began the original building of his stronghold, Barad-dûr, the Dark Tower, and the forges of Mount Doom and Samath Naur. Barad-dûr was nigh an impenetrable fortress, built out of some kind of strong substance, with many pits and prisons and battlements. Around the year 1600 of the Second Age, Sauron forged the One Ring in Mount Doom, the only place where that ring could thusly be unmade, and he completed Barad-dûr with the power of the ring and constructed the Black Gate, quite possibly also with the power of the ring. Soon after, the War of the Elves and Sauron took place, and Sauron had great victory until the Men of the West, the High Men of Númenor, defeated him, driving him back to his land of Mordor. Thus, rather than sending his power north and west as he had been doing, Sauron rather sent his power and domination south and east of Mordor, conquering many tribes of Easterlings and Haradrim. For indeed, many men who flocked to Sauron's banner did not do so by choice, but by force, as they had no true choice, and their people were conquered. In 3262 of the Second Age, Sauron would be captured by the Númenóreans and brought to their island, only for him to spread further influence and cause the downfall of Númenor. and his spirit would find its way back to his tower and dark land. While the faithful Númenóreans came to these hither shores and created the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor, Sauron dwelt in Mordor and rebuilt his power. Then, in the year 3429 of the Second Age, Mount Doom erupted to signal his attack on the west, and Minas Ithil, a fortress of Gondor built on the outskirts of Mordor, was then taken, starting the War of the Last Alliance. After many battles and sieges, the West came into Mordor and defeated Sauron in his own land. Isildur took the One Ring as a wergild for the deaths of his brother and father, and the Tower of Barad-dûr was leveled. But that was not the end of the Master of Mordor, for while the ring lingered, that which could have been destroyed then and there, Sauron endured. After the war, no men came to settle in Mordor for the dreadful memory of the Dark Lord, his works, and his volcano, besides those men who already lived in Nirn. But Gondor attempted to remain vigilant, building strongholds and towers to keep watch upon the land, should any danger return. Thus the men of Gondor built and maintained Durthang, a mountain fortress above Udun, the Towers of Teeth to keep watch on the Morannon, and Cirith Ungol, watching the pass between Mordor and Minas Ithil. The men of Gondor even repurposed the Black Gate of Mordor, now redesigned not to guard Mordor, but to keep the evils of Mordor in. These places kept watch on the Dark Land, ensuring the servants of Sauron never returned there. But in an ever-changing world, with new dangers at hand, even the most important and dutiful of watches falter. After the population-altering events of the Kinstrife and the Great Plague, the populations of Gondor diminished, and the forces from these outposts were recalled. And so, after his final defeat in Angmar, the Witch King returned in 1980 of the Third Age and recalled the Nine together. Then they besieged and took Minas Ithil, thus calling it Minas Morgul in 2002. Thereafter, they made Mordor ready for the return of its master, as evil things came back there. The old strongholds of Gondor, to keep watch on Mordor, were then used by the servants of Sauron to maintain a strong and fortified position in Mordor. Things like the Watching Stones outside of Cirith Ungol would be placed as new powers of evil. And so after Sauron was ousted from Dol Guldur by the White Council in 2941, he went back to Mordor, made ready for him by his servants. 10 years later, in 2951, Sauron would declare himself openly in Mordor and begin the reconstruction of Barad-dûr. And its pinnacle was so tall that only fell sorceries held it aloft. While the Eye of Sauron was a symbol for Mordor, it does not seem that there was actually an eye atop Barad-dûr as there was in the movies. Sauron regathered his servants, and the slaves of the Dark Lord were forced to farm or fight for him and his armies. New forges, armories, and garrisons of Mordor were made. There were no armies in those later days of the world strong enough to conquer Sauron's strategic position and have a military victory, so the best that could be done was to hold the forces of Mordor at bay, but constantly be on the defensive, as Gondor was. Only stealth could defeat the Dark Lord. The War of the Ring took place in 3018 through 3019 of the Third Age, and the Nine were Mordor's greatest servants abroad, searching for the ring and commanding the Dark Lord's armies, while others, such as the Mouth of Sauron, served the Dark Lord in Mordor. For while Sauron was still powerful, he was not yet powerful enough or courageous enough to leave the confines of his Dark Tower and Mordor, not unless victory was assured and was at hand. Even before the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, Frodo, Sam, and Gollum felt a great eruption of Mount Doom from near the pass of Cirith Ungol, as it signaled the movement of the armies of the East and the hammer stroke of doom. Even though the Mountain of Fire erupted sporadically from 2954 to the end of the war, this eruption was more than that. It was a signal of fire and command from Gorgoroth. The hobbits and Gollum continued through their secret path, through Shelob's lair, for they had been unable to go through the well-guarded Black Gate. After the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, the host of the West went to the Black Gate and fought the last battle of the war to give the Ring-Bearer a chance. But of course, the Ring-Bearer was successful in his quest to return the One Ring to its place of creation from an age past, and to destroy it there, even after Sam defeated Mordor's oldest denizen Shelob and saved Frodo from the clutches of the Tower of Cirith Ungol. After the destruction of the One Ring in Sammath Naur by Gollum's accidental fall, a large portion of Mount Doom exploded, and the ends of Barad-dûr, the Black Gate, and the Towers of Teeth on either side of the Black Gate were also brought about. Sauron and his ringwraiths, whose power and survival were bound to the One Ring of the Second Age, were also destroyed. In the time after the defeat of the Dark Lord, Frodo and Sam were rescued from Mount Doom, and the Dark Land stayed mostly empty, as the remaining servants of Sauron were slain or driven off. But even after everything the land had been through, it would eventually be able to live again itself, and provide life to others. Gondor freed the slaves of Nirn and gave them their own lands back, as this was one of the kingdom's deeds of the late Third Age and early Fourth Age in repairing relations with the men of the East and South. And so it seems Mordor became a better place than it had been since the Elder Days, for it was free from the dominion of the evils it had always known. And thus we come to the end of our tale about Mordor. From the history of Mordor, we see how lands unchecked by good hearts and justice can bolster further evil in the world. We must never fail in our vigil to protect what is good in this world, or evil will find its way in. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. What are your thoughts, questions, additions, and corrections about Mordor and its history? Let me know in the comments below. As a land for the antagonist, it is quite interesting, and I enjoy how it is a literary foil for Gondor in the dichotomy of Gondor and Mordor. And furthermore, it is the antithesis of the Shire, the land of our protagonist. Please check out our music channel, Facebook, Twitter, merch, and Patreon for podcasts and Discord server. Links are in the description below. I wanted to shout out our Valor tier patrons: Adrian de la Torre, Chris Ortner, Peter Shepard, Cal Wetzel, Len Grimes, Samuel McBee, Jonathan Putnam, and Mark Kralik. Thank you guys so much, it means a lot to me. Finally, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the Free Peoples today. And I'll see you all again next week with the video on the Kin Strife, the Gondorian Civil War. My friends, as always, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one, my great friends.